All right, welcome everyone to our third meeting of this fine Tuesday, October 15th, 2024. We are here with our standard operating procedure agenda setting session tonight. We've already pledged civility and we have already called roll, and we are excited that we've got more than a quorum here at our agenda setting meeting. We have multiple opportunities for public input tonight. We're going to have an opportunity for public input on the consent agenda. We'll have an opportunity for public input on the single planning and zoning item that's on our agenda after receiving the presentation from Planning Director Bruce Lonnie. And then we'll have an opportunity for public input on old and new business. Each of those public input opportunities will be approximately the same, a 3-minute opportunity. And if you are interested in giving public input, we just need to know your name, your place of residence, and the item to which you are speaking. Again, each of those is 3 minutes. You see a light in front of the clerk. It will turn green when you begin speaking. It will turn yellow when you have 30 seconds remaining, and it will turn red when your time has expired. And I will thank you for your time with us tonight. So on our consent agenda so far, we have 4 items, 1 through 4. Is there any member of the public who would like to speak to one of those 4 items this evening? Is there any commissioner who would like to remove any of those 4 items from consent for discussion? Commissioner Houle?
2.
Any others? All right. Well, we will go ahead and we will move to our single presentation from the planning and zoning agenda and then have public input on that item.
Sorry, Gavin.
Bruce Lonnie from the planning department will be joining us. And will be telling us all about 290, 310, and 322 North Avenue.
Popping up momentarily. Let's try it again. All right, let's try this again.
New revenue in that dam. And some inclusionary zoning.
Be there. I did? Yeah. Do it again?
No, just go under 2. It was showing up and then stopped.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And
Cool.
All right. Lights, camera, action.
Thank you.
Bruce,
Sorry
thanks
about
for
that.
being with us.
Thank you. So, Planning Commission actually had an agenda with 2 items. The second item that was on that agenda would have been the first special use request for a short-term rental. Unfortunately, the applicant was called away out of town and asked for us to move that back a month, so that'll be coming to you next month. So we do have the 1 item, and it is 4 properties on North Avenue. This is a planned development, 2024-05-0935. And the request is to go from commercial general to commercial general PD, planned development. What the applicant is proposing is a mixed-use development, commercial and multi-story residential, 2 separate buildings, and we'll show you that here in just a second. The proposed uses within the PD that the applicant has identified include a gas station and associated convenience store, along with a multi-tenant retail structure. There would be 128 multifamily units for a total of 260 bedrooms. 20% of those would be set aside through the inclusionary zoning process. And you'll see on the site plan in a minute, there's surface parking, but there's also some plaza space incorporated into the design. The applicant has requested 6 waivers, and staff's analysis of those requests found that they were consistent with the design intent of the code, and actually was able to support all 6 in the context of the design that they've presented. Those waivers are on the screen, but real quickly, they are asking for the ability to flex ground floor commercial in the CG zone because they do have a separate building with residential on the main floor. They would like to waive the requirement to exceed the maximum block size, and I'll show you in a second why that has come into play. They've also asking to waive the requirement to exceed the maximum building length, which is 300 feet by code. They would like an additional 20 feet, up to 20 feet. To reduce the minimum parking to reduce the parking minimum required from 34 to 26 spaces. We don't often get that request. Staff was pleased to see that, and with the mixed-use development, it actually made some sense. Waiving the requirement for sidewalk on both sides of the internal street. I'll show you that in a second. They are showing a wider multi-use path rather than having sidewalk on both sides. And then to reduce the conserved tree canopy coverage from 10% to 3.9%. That seems like a dramatic decrease, but that is just for the conserved canopy. In order to make the project work, there's a good bit of canopy on site, but they are having to remove that. The overall canopy would meet what is required for the zone. So here's location view of the map. It is next to the North Avenue Shopping Center there in the Advanced Auto parts immediately to the north. It's on the east side of North Avenue as you're heading out of town. General business is the future land use category. That is not having to be altered as part of this request. And then here's the zoning. It's not going to look different on the map. CG to CGPD is the request, and they would be combining the 4 subject parcels into a single tract for development. Here's the site plan that would become binding upon approval. You see towards the frontage, North Avenue is on the left-hand side of the screen. That smaller rectangle is the pump canopy for the gas station. The associated convenience store, as proposed, would be in the north end of that L-shaped structure. And then there's a series of commercial tenant spaces that would round out the other 10,000 square feet of commercial. The multicolored areas to the south of the building are those plaza areas. There's also a smaller kind of outdoor dining plaza element on the north end towards Advanced Auto Parts. And then you see another plaza to the east of that that is also associated with the dog park. To the south edge of the site plan, you see what has been shown as a future roadway interconnection. And as we get into the condition of approval that was proposed by the Planning Commission, this will make more sense. But this is an opportunity for interconnection to another parcel that has frontage on Bray Street, that's kind of in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. Rather than having sidewalk on both sides of that street, that larger multi-use path is what is shown on the north side of that interconnection. And then you have a good bit of surface parking. A lot of that is driven by the residential calculation for the apartments. And here's the representative architecture that would become binding upon approval. What you see on the top image is what you would see from North Avenue looking straight into the site. The thing you have to imagine is that towards the left-hand side of that image, you're going to see a gas canopy. And that's the representation that they have of that. It's just separate from the image. This is the structure to the rear that would be the multi-tenant. It's a 3-4 split, as you can see, because of the topo of the site. There's considerable grade change on this property. We've probably seen 4 or 5 schematics on how to get this developed. And the applicant has been very responsive to Planning Commission's input all along the way. So that has driven this final design that you're seeing. Planning Commission's recommendation was driven by the fact that it's largely compatible with the 2023 Comprehensive Plan. This does add affordable housing in an infill location inside the loop. It does align with one of the nodes that's currently under consideration with the growth concept map, and it has a number of options for interconnectivity, especially considering we have the RAISE grant along this corridor as well. The gas station does create a bike and pedestrian conflict point. A lot of times we would push back on that. We would have some concerns and we would sort those out. But what's different about this design is that they have a very urban format to what they're showing. This is not a single-use structure. This is not a purpose-built convenience store / gas station. And so we found that was something unique. It was an attempt to balance and remedy that conflict. And it did offer some creative opportunities for the future for a second life for the building. It's very easy. You can look around town and see other gas stations that have turned their canopies or turned the gas stations into restaurants. It really would not be hard to see this canopy change into a covered outdoor seating of some sort in the future. So it is compatible with the future land use and with the zoning map. And Planning Commission gave their support also for all 6 waivers. They did say approval with condition. And the condition is fairly wordy, but we really wanted to get the details in there. But what this is saying is that that roadway to the south, that's an interconnection to Bray Street, needs to remain on the plan, needs to include the fact that it's going to be built to public standard, and that in the future, its intent is to be connected at the property line to the rear. There is development under contemplation for that other parcel, and they are currently working to look at this point of interconnection as a future point to help them as well, because they have a hard time with accesses. So this condition is meant to kind of carry the day and make sure we've got all the wording in place, should you adopt it, to make that interconnection a reality for the future. And that concludes the staff report.
Thanks, Bruce. Is there any member of the public who's here to speak to this plan in front of us? All right, seeing none, we'll come to commission discussion, and this is in District 2, so we'll let Commissioner Link begin discussion.
Yeah, I've had some communication with the developer, as this plan kind of morphed. And it's nice to see they incorporated some of the suggestions as far as getting that shared use path in there and assuring that there was bike ped accessibility. Because we do have another multifamily project this is backing up to, and this allows access to that too. That other project is a land trust project, so this is a pocket of affordable housing very close to town. And with North Avenue's redevelopment, hopefully you'll get some folks out of their cars and taking advantage of a reimagined North Avenue. I'm happy to follow the advice of the Planning Commission in approving this, and with that, one condition to assure that that road is up to snuff.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Fisher.
Yes, thank you. I just, had a question for the Mr. Lundy. Is this the first type of development that we have done in this community that had living in a gas station together as one? If it is, I've never seen one before.
There is a proposal on Martin Luther King Parkway that came forward that did have townhomes towards the rear and a gas station towards the front. That was relatively recent. But something of this size, it is absolutely the first of its sort.
And I guess my only thing is, if there's a safety issue with gas stations being that close and with the apartments, with the housing there, was that under consideration at all?
Yes, and we had many conversations with the fire marshal, also with our traffic engineering staff, to make sure turn movements in and out of a gas canopy like that would make sense. You'll notice, on the site plan, let's get back there, all of the turn movements to that canopy are isolated from the residential traffic. So that was one of the things early on, they weren't isolated one from another. So that was a design change that the applicant made in response to a safety concern. As far as proximity of the pumps to residential, there is fire and emergency code that will address that, and the fire marshal has conveyed those points already to the developer. So I think we should be in good shape.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Houle.
Yeah. So the housing elements of this is great. We need housing. I love that they're doing the inclusionary zoning thing. 20% set aside means they're doing 80% AMI. Is that right?
That's right.
I'd always prefer the 60 over the 80, but 80 is still definitely better than nothing for sure. The street and the condition makes sense. But man, there is a gas station right next door, 2 lots away. There's another one just up the road right outside the loop, and a third one a half mile down the hill. I don't understand why we need a fourth gas station and think that in years from now it might get converted into something else. I mean, just something else from the get-go as part of the initial design with a wonderful shade canopy sounds great, but our code doesn't require, as it's currently written, staff to look into the health impacts of living adjacent to gas stations, but people who have looked at it have documented them. The environmental impacts on the soil that are potential, especially if it's not maintained really well, are real. What can be done in the future with the land once you've put a gas station on it, turns it into a brown, I just, we need the housing for sure, but we need housing that's not next to like a toxic, unnecessary gas station. I just feel like anything else should be a part of this PD for the commercial element, and I would hope that would be a quick and easy fix design-wise to maybe be able to bring it back with that, if colleagues agree.
Got a set of colleagues who'd like to provide some input, beginning with Commissioner Davenport next.
Right. Thank you. I agree with Commissioner Hall about the gas stations. For some reason, this city is like, we love gas stations. But anyway, my question, if I missed this, Lonnie, please let me know, but would this community be gated?
No, there was no gate proposed.
Okay.
The submittal is silent about gating into those parking lots, but there would be no gate across that future interconnection of Bray.
So, and please, y'all don't beat me up. Across the street is a known gathering of homeless individuals at their Vantage. And you're in the applicant, I'm quite sure the applicant knows, if you're introducing a plaza, you're moving that population towards that area. I'm not against it, I'm just saying, hopefully the applicant understands that. And without a gate, I'm just assuming that we're going to hear some issues from those tenants who are occupying those spaces. And who are living there. But I do have a question on the 3.9% canopy. Explain, because it's a beautifully wooded area now, lovely oaks out there, and I'm not for the gas station, but can you explain again the staff recommendation of going from 10 to 3.9 and the existing tree canopy will be supported?
Absolutely. So the tree quality that's out there, it's a mix of hardwoods, but there's a lot of succession pine. Not that that's a bad thing, but as far as kind of tree quality, that's middle of the road. The waiver is about conservation of the current canopy. They still intend to meet the overall canopy requirement, and they're in all likelihood going to exceed that minimum overall canopy requirement with what they're preserving along the south side, along with their parking lot trees, as well as the street trees on North Avenue and the Bray Street extension, also around the detention pond and up towards the dog park. So relaxing the conserved canopy requirement gives them the opportunity on this relatively steep site to do the additional grading necessary to be able to put in a parking lot, which needs to be relatively level. And that parking lot is on both sides of the building that's split to work with the topo change. So the relief that they were looking for was not to keep that middle area, which again is largely pine and not hardwood, and then to replant with species that are more appropriate for an urban setting like this.
Well, thank you for clarifying. I thought there was oaks out there, but
There are some in the middle and some pecans, but there's
mainly
a good
hardwood.
bit of pine in there too.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Got Commissioner Thornton.
Thank you, Mayor. I do like the design. I do like we're heading into some sort of affordable housing. I do agree. I wish it was 60 AMI instead of the 80, but I guess it's a start. But my comment is going to also be on the gas station. Further down, and I do need to, for clarification before everybody calls me, this is Commissioner Link's district. So when people see it, they're going to call Ovita, so call Commissioner Link. But further down, which is actually my district, there's a gas station, I'm not going to call it out. They had a leak maybe a year ago, maybe longer, and they fixed it, of course, but the person who owns the property behind it can't sell their property because of that situation. So I don't think, if there's any way we could have the same, if the developer would consider doing something else other than a gas station, I think I would be more supportive of it. We have, I think, Commissioner Taylor was holding up her fingers of as many gas stations we have on that Thoroughway. Folk can get to a gas station. So I don't think we should create a situation that could have some type of damaging consequences years down the road unnecessarily. And if they want to consider that 60 AMI, I'm sure we'll go for that too.
Commissioner Culpepper?
Yeah, I understand the concern about the gas station, but, maybe that's what's making it available so they can, or allowing them to make it affordable, because the revenue they're generating from the ground lease from the gas station. So if we eliminate, and I don't know if that's the case or not, but that's something, if we eliminate the gas station, then we might lose the opportunity to have it affordable. So we need to just be careful about what we're requiring them to do, and because we're talking about affordable housing, the more we require, and if we're limiting their potential income, it might not be affordable.
Commissioner Taylor?
Well, to my colleagues, whether they pull out because we're asking them or suggesting that there shouldn't be a third gas station within walking distance of the Piggly Wiggly, the dollar store, and both AutoZone stores. If that's a caveat to say having 3 gas stations in a row, if that's going to keep them from wanting to do affordable housing, and not saying that it is, then it's not my district. But because I take that road every day, I don't see how safe that is for the existing residents. Also, there is a Chevron that's gonna come up right at the Fowler and Danielsville Road, right in front of the bus stop that's there, across from Wayne's Auto Shop. There's a proposed Chevron that's gonna go there that already has a sign. So that's like almost 6 gas stations. I don't see how safe that is for the residents that's already there. And I was also going to just comment that there is a massive homeless population that lives in those bushes that's adjacent, well, in that property. And so as a body, while we're having this conversation, I want that to be a preview of what we're going to have to deal with once the trees come down. There's like maybe 5 homeless camps that's back there that goes all the way to Bray Street, that goes as far as Howard B. Stroud Elementary. Like, there have been, reports of the police being called at the elementary school because homeless people are, the students can see them. That's how many homeless people it is back there. So I just want us to be mindful. Like, I don't like the gas station concept. There's already enough gas stations on North Avenue. And we're also going to have to deal with all of the displaced homeless people that are going to come out of the bushes. So I want us to be very mindful. Like,
Commissioner Myers?
Yeah, a quick Google search here found a long list of papers, and including one from the National Institute of Health on the adverse effects of residential proximity to environmental hazards, including gas stations. So that is a concern that's been brought up, and a valid one. I don't know how regulations have changed in recent years or not to address that. I don't know how they've changed to address the long-term effects of the gas stations and the gas tanks for future development. That's something I don't know. So that does concern me there. I have 2 questions on this from the drawings. On the elevations, which of the elevations shows what would be facing the gas pumps, or did I miss that?
At the very top of the screen,
Okay.
that's the elevation that would be facing North Avenue on the other side of the pumps.
Okay, so there'd be, and, yeah, so one of those would be a place you'd be going in. Where would you be going in to pay for your gas?
They haven't designated which tenant
Okay.
space would be.
But it would be one of those
It would
spaces.
be one of those.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's helpful. So you have, again, people going into other establishments as well, if supposedly, if this all works out. The other thing I just, for my own education here, back to the road situation and the condition on that, just so I'm consistent in my understanding, really has nothing to do with this acceptance or not. But that condition that was put on there, is that the same kind of condition you all were thinking about suggesting for the Mr. Kittle property, where there would be, it would be private until, but it would be made along public standards until it was needed to be, that, you're shaking your head, yes?
Similar concept, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Got Commissioner Houle, Thornton, and Link, and Davenport with the second round.
Yeah, I'm loving hearing so much agreement on my gas station concerns, and I guess I just wanted to note that I'm glad that we're having this discussion because this is coming to us as a PD. We get to discuss these elements, but I do want to remind everyone that in this zoning category, our code allows gas stations by right, and if everyone on this body is agreeing as much as I'm hearing that that's a problem, I would ask you to join me in the request of the mayor to the planning department, or planning commission, or one of our committees to revisit that by right use. I think there's a lot of good evidence for why we should. And if it were not a by right use, I bet this would have come to us with something other than a gas station, because they would have needed even more waivers to put that in, that they would have needed exemption from. And our staff would have been tasked with looking at more than just fire hazards and traffic ingress egress. They would have been looking at other public health concerns. And I mean, quite honestly, our staff is not in charge of regulating the things that often go awry when you have a leak, like Commissioner Thornton noted. So I do hope that this can be fairly simply modified to do something other than a gas station. I'd be glad to support that. I do imagine that there are plenty of commercial uses that can generate a comparable amount of revenue for the property owner to help meet their needs. I think that was a good point that Commissioner Culpepper brought up. But I ask everybody to think about bigger picture. If we're agreeing on this thing, recognizing that we only get to talk about that element because this is a PD, and they're probably only even including it in their design because that's what our code says they can.
Commissioner Thornton.
Yeah, I'm going to go back on the gas station thing also. Well, a couple of things. A profit and people, there's no comparison. If the gas station is for profit and in the future there's hazards that impact people, I don't think that they even measure. They're not even on the same scale. But I am interested in Commissioner Culpepper's comment because I hadn't thought about it. But Mr. Lonnie, can we find out if this was a profit issue? This is what balances the affordability. Is there any way we could get some word from the developer? Is this what balances out the 20% AMI? Is that a factor?
I'd be happy to reach out to the applicant and ask the question as it relates to the affordable housing provision. I think that's probably appropriate to ask as it relates to the affordable housing. I think beyond that, we typically don't reach into the finances of these developments, but I think because of the affordable housing component, it's probably germane and probably worth asking.
And here we go. This is 6 waivers, the inclusionary zoning. I think this government has made a tremendous outreach for this development. So I really would like to hear this position on the gas stations. And I'm going to piggyback on Commissioner Taylor's point about the homelessness. Mayor, we need to go back and revisit whatever we're going to do with homelessness, whether it's through the Homeless Coalition, because as we develop, these encampments all over are going to be disruptive. So maybe there's some conversation with the Homeless Coalition to look at this from an economic point of view. If we're recruiting, trying to attract economic development in these communities, in these wooded areas, we definitely need to be having a homeless plan moving parallel with that. And I don't know if many people remember Tent City that set off the bypass. And those folk were doing okay because Miss Porter was taking care of them. And it was her back of her property. But when they clear cut those woods, homeless folk showed up everywhere. So if we're talking about a homeless situation now, maybe we can have some conversation with economic development and homelessness in the same conversation.
I'll just say, as a kind of matter of local government having to do many things well at once, this is illustrative of our need to continue to lean into, homeless support and transition services. And I spent some time doing a windshield tour with our Homeless Coalition director as recently as a week ago. And they're very conscious of this kind of transition in use, meaning that they need to be very strong in their outreach work. Commissioner Link?
Yeah, it's my understanding that the gas station was kind of a deal breaker on this development. They went before the Planning Commission pretty early and they brought up some of these same concerns. The designer of the project got kind of innovative in incorporating this level of affordable housing into it. This is kind of like a lesser or greater good, lesser evil thing. We don't like gas stations. There's already a whole bunch of them here, but we certainly need the affordable housing. This is 260 bedrooms, and we talk about homeless folks getting displaced. One way we help impact our homeless issue is by increasing the availability of affordable housing. There's a choice to be made there. From what I understand, the actual property owner is dead set on a gas station, and what they could do right now is go ahead and just build a gas station on it with no housing whatsoever. I do have a question for the attorney. Because the gas station is by right, could we reject this proposal on those grounds? Being that, the PD and the waivers are asking, to go outside our code on other matters besides the gas station.
Well, I don't want to publicly comment because I noticed there's an attorney listed there, so I'd like to advise y'all in writing related to that.
Okay. This is one of those decisions we need to make. Do we hate gas stations more than we love affordable housing?
Commissioner Davenport?
So I appreciate Commissioner Link's comment, but do we want to degrade our community with more gas stations? I'm not going to fall on the sword on this one. But the question, and I think inclusionary zoning as well is offering an incentive as well for affordable housing because they're using infill properties to build some housing. But Lonnie, can you quickly, can you quickly explain again about the walkability, the bike lanes, and in association with the RAISE grant and the next project? Oh, okay, he's talking.
I think the attorney was engaging with planning director. But
Bruce. I'm sorry.
Bruce, the question was kind of how the bike ped infrastructure here engages with the face of North Avenue that, of course, we're going to talk about later.
Yeah.
Yeah, so with the RAISE grant program, which y'all saw recently in a work session format, there's the high-tension Georgia Power transmission lines are across this frontage, and that's why the buildings are actually pulled back. So the ability to have space between the buildings and the North Avenue right-of-way for bike ped infrastructure is still there with this design.
Okay.
It didn't get to that level of detail, but they have said all along, the applicant has said that they are willing to coordinate with Athens-Clarke County's design efforts within the North Avenue right-of-way.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Myers?
Yeah, I do, I need a little help with going back to slide, I guess, like 11, doesn't matter, or 11 would be good, yeah.
Is that-
Just in terms of the parcels, now that Commissioner Link has brought up the fact that you could build a gas station here by right, these are, didn't you say in the beginning here that these were all being, in this proposal, they'd all become one parcel, but right now they're not one parcel, right? So theoretically, you could take those bottom two on the left, close to North Avenue, and put that into a gas station without any request for rezoning, is that correct?
That's correct.
That's correct. And so then you could, so that is helpful for me to know. So, I mean, you could do that, and then you could do something else with the housing over here. You could put it in as two things. Am I correct in that? You could have your housing on that bigger parcel if you were doing that?
You could, it would
Right.
still involve a zoning
A
action.
rezoning, but it would be a rezoning without a
That's right.
gas station.
And they could do it by right if they did the housing on the second floor and above and have a commercial use on the main floor.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you, that's helpful.
And just, you know, in terms of sort of real activity that you tend to see in a corridor like this, kind of under the proposal that you're contemplating, Commissioner Myers, that would be different than what we have in front of us, if one were to have a coffee shop and a workout facility and some other kind of office kind of underneath the multifamily, that would satisfy that element of our code, for example. So I've got a couple folks, Commissioner Houle and then Commissioner Thorne.
Yeah, I just want to, this will be my last remark on this matter, but I'm a little disappointed in the false equivalency of like, we have to choose this or we'll get a gas station by right. Because I will remind everyone that we could change our code to not allow gas stations by right, which is the thing I have been asking this body to do for a year. And so if we did that, say next month, no gas station by right. So I don't see why we have to pretend like we need to do this. We can just decide, since everyone here is acknowledging the problems with gas stations and the large amount we've already got serving the need of people, especially on this corridor, we don't need to do that. We don't need to choose affordable housing or.
Commissioner Thorne?
I need to, and this is a very generic question. This plan, and I always see the FLU, Future Land Use Plan, and I saw it on this slide. Is this based on the current land use plan? So when I see future land use plan, it is not the one that we're currently working on.
That's correct. We have a future land use plan that's already been adopted. And when you see these submittals, we're still referring to that one that's been
The
adopted.
one that's already adopted?
That's correct.
Okay.
Commissioner Culpepper?
So this, you've got to put commercial on the bottom of this throughout the project, is that correct?
If you're going in by right, but this is asking for some relief from that.
But, all right, so the question is the gas station. So if they were allowed, because you see a lot of these apartment complexes that are getting built, they've got commercial or retail on the bottom, and all that stuff is vacant. You know, none of that stuff is getting leased. What if we switch this and let him put residential units on the ground floor? Would that make his numbers work? And could he get the density? But because I think there's a lot of speculation and ifs when you're trying to rent out commercial space in these type of developments when the track record isn't very good for this stuff being rented out.
So I'd encourage reaching out to the applicant and asking that question.
I mean, procedurally, that would be a pretty substantive change to what they've asked for. So it would either be remanding this back to the Planning Commission for further development in order to accommodate that. But even that is a pretty big change to remove the commercial altogether and to go to a single use. it may be better to have the discussion about that intent, and if they withdraw, they could come back. If they're denied, they've got to wait a year. Those would be the three procedural.
Well, it'd be nice to
Pathways.
know how many units they could yield out of that, I guess, before, instead of going through a bunch of, would it even work? I mean, it might not make a difference.
I will say this, the configuration of that L-shaped building is designed that way to accommodate the function of the gas station.
Okay.
So without the gas station, that footprint no longer has to be L-shaped. It could be any shape. So that would, again, be a pretty substantive change to this plan. So I think what you're describing there is a fresh start.
Well, I don't, yeah, I mean,
But
Mayor, I'd like to comment on that. Planning Director Lonnie, I don't agree with you that it would be a substantive change. I mean, basically, we've given waivers before on stuff like this, and certainly if there's an issue with the gas station in the PD, you could just say it doesn't need to be a gas station, but that footprint can be some other commercial use besides a gas station. So I don't agree with your assessment on that it's a substantial change. It doesn't, no, it's not necessary. Because the mayor already pointed out, they could use that spot for offices or whatever else. It doesn't necessarily have to be commercial down there.
no, you're 100% correct. And when I was saying that, I was really responding to Commissioner Culpepper's comment about increasing the residential yield. So using more footprint for residential capacity, filling in that void that is now a gas canopy, that would be a potential, to achieve what he was suggesting, it would be a change.
That's not what I hear him saying. I hear him
Oh,
saying
okay.
taking away the commercial behind the gas station. And then, is that?
I was just saying eliminate the commercial on the ground floor and put residential throughout the entire project.
Right.
That way he would yield more units. It might make the deal work if the gas station is a deal breaker.
Well, and two things that I kind of might observe is that I think part of what Bruce is identifying is just sort of the circulation was probably designed for a gas canopy here. And so that's just a design feature in terms of the way the sort of building array works. And then the other thing just about this commercial residential mix question is that, we've got sort of a sliding scale, and we've already moved along that sliding scale even in this Planning Commission recommended plan, in that you have no commercial on the back component of the project. For example, you've got exclusively residential there. So it's not necessarily a question of all or nothing. It's just, where along the continuum is sort of appropriate for this place on North Avenue. Clearly a lot of interest in kind of the variety of bells and whistles on this. I would recommend to those folks who have questions, we've worked with the applicant's agent before. I'd recommend reaching out to him. Bruce, thank you. I appreciate it a bunch.
All right. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to relocate, and we are going to go ahead and take public input on old and new business. All right, given some commission action of earlier, we have moved item 2, which is the Byrne grant, to new business for discussion. And so now we're taking input on old and new business. So those are items 2 and 6 through 18. 2 and 6 through 18, and rules of public input are as described earlier, up to a 3-minute input. And please let us know as you step to the podium right now if you'd like to provide public input, your name, place of residence, and the item to which you are speaking. Good evening, sir. And Judd?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Andy Herod, 315 Brookwood Drive. I would like to talk to you about item number 11, which is about trash hauling, or proposals for trash. So I did send everybody a rather long email a week or so ago, so I hope you had a chance to take a look at that. I'm sure that there are probably a lot of people out in TV land that are not really aware of what solid waste proposal would mean, but essentially there is a proposal on the table to fundamentally change the way in which trash hauling is done in the old part of the county, what's known as the General Services District, so not in the old city of Athens. I would like to oppose the proposals that have come forth from the Legislative Review Committee and on behalf of solid waste. Some of the arguments that have been made in favor of changing the way in which trash is done in the old county is that going to a single hauler for each neighborhood will reduce the number of trucks coming through a neighborhood on any given day. I'm sure that that's probably true, and I'm sure for some people that's probably an issue. It's not an issue for me personally. But I think if you were to ask people, are you willing to give up the choice of using the hauler that you desire so that you can have trucks coming through your neighborhood only on one day? I suspect the answer that you would get from many people will be no. You won't know that, of course, because you haven't done a public comment response. So that's when I was on the commission. It was typically you would ask for public comment from the public. That hasn't been done. One of the arguments is that by going to a zoning system, it will make the trash hauling more efficient, and those savings will be passed on to customers. I highly doubt that creating a monopoly in different parts of the county for particular haulers is going to reduce prices. I see also that there is a proposal to reduce self-hauling. I'm not a self-hauler. This is not something that concerns me. But a lot of my friends, most of whom seem to live in Commissioner Davenport's district and Commissioner Myers's district, do self-haul. And many of them are avid recyclers, and they produce very little trash. You require somebody to have trash service, I suspect that the rate of recycling will diminish. Everybody will just put stuff in the trash, and that is going to use up your landfill more quickly than you otherwise wish to. At the end of the day, one of the arguments from solid waste is that, well, everybody in the service, the old city is required to have trash and everybody else should do, and this will equalize things. But you're not proposing to bring city trash out to the old county. Essentially what you're saying is, we're not going to provide a service for you, but we're going to tell you which hauler you can and cannot use, and I do not think that's fair. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Harrod. Is there anyone else here to speak to any item or of old or new business tonight? Step up to the podium. We're waiting on you.
I'm going as fast as I can go.
Evening.
Good evening. My name is Brad Hankins. I live at 598 Forest Road in Athens. I want to thank the mayor and the commissioners for all the work that you do to make our city a better place. Regarding the proposal to streamline the collection of trash in the county, I do not think that this will improve our lives. And I think this for several reasons, but I want to just address one of those. Some have proposed that awarding sections of the county to single trash collectors would result in fewer trucks and less damage to the roads by reducing truck traffic. This sounds reasonable, but it is incorrect. The American State Highway and Transportation officials found that increasing the weight load per axle is what multiplies damage to the road. Therefore, dividing our trash among several collectors actually preserves the roads by reducing the weight load per axle because the trucks are not fully loaded. And concentrating the trash into a single collector and fewer trucks would actually increase the damage to the roads that we would eventually have to pay for. I promised you a short comment, and I gave you one. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hankins. Are there any others here who would like to speak to any item of old or new business tonight? All right, we're going to move to commission discussion, and we're going to begin with item 2, which is the Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Grant application, which would enhance the real-time crime center that we've begun to fund. Commissioner Houle, you asked for this removal, so I'll begin with you.
Yeah, I just wanted to check with Manager Jones here. The language in here notes that this is going to be used to procure equipment and items. I'm looking at facts and issues 5, and I just want to clarify whether that equipment or items can be weaponry.
No, not this particular grant request.
Okay, thank you. I'm happy to put it back on consent with that understood.
Any other input before it goes back on consent? All right, we heard it here first. 2 is back on consent. Moving in the right direction, friends. All right, moving to item 6. This is TSPLOST 2018 bus stop and transfer facility improvements. Anyone like to speak to this item? Commissioner Davenport?
I don't make sure this is the right one. Okay. Yes. Okay. We put this off of consent. I'm sorry. I'm getting my notes prepared for another agenda item.
Yeah, we can leave it off consent.
Question for staff. Wood Grove is, okay. Okay, Wood Grove, I think is across the street from the transfer station. It's currently East Hampton. Why are we fixing that road? And can we save costs by not fixing that road?
I don't have that answer for you. I can make sure we get that in the follow-up report.
Question 2. So looking at the design, the transfer station will be put up right next to it's a beautiful park. So like a lot of people go there to walk, to skateboard, and to exercise and all that fun stuff. So the transfer station is going to be, first we're going to have signal light at the intersection, but the transfer station is going to be a further ways down the road into the park, next to the skate park. I just have some concerns about traffic of the buses going down that far and people biking and skateboarding, and why not use, and I should have looked at Q Public, and I apologize, the property on the Whit Davis side. Because if you put the transfer station at the Whit Davis side, it's less interruption for the people entering Southeast Clarke Park. Plus, there's already a signal light at the Walmart Whit Davis Road, Lexington Road intersection, and then you wouldn't have to configure the road across the street from in the East Hampton subdivision.
Just in the process of determining the best place to locate it, working with the designers, leisure services, and transit, that was determined as the best site. I'm sure there's a number of reasons, and I can certainly add those criteria for you in the follow-up report.
But just for my colleagues, just to understand, like, it's a long driveway to get, not a long driveway, but it's a decent driveway to get into Southeast Clarke Park. It's curved. A lot of people walk that driveway. But at the end of that driveway, before it turns to the left to a parking lot, is a skate rink. And a lot of people, skate park, excuse me. I got cursed off for calling it a skate rink last time. I'm sorry, skate park. Well, a lot of people who rollerblade and, skateboard and all that stuff. So I'm just hearing a lot of discussion from people in the community how a bus transfer station would be disruptive to the people enjoying that park, as more specifically at the skate park. But across the street, if you go to Google Maps and look at Whit Davis Road, we do have access to Southeast Clarke Park on that side, and there's a parcel that is available that's big enough behind or before you get to Marathon gas station and the Dollar Tree. There's a parcel available that be a perfect location as well for a transfer station that would be less disruptive.
So Commissioner, you want to get some staff response to the
Yes.
prospect of using an entryway between those commercial properties you mentioned and the World of Wonder?
That's
That's
right, Mayor.
correct.
It's right next to the World of Wonder. And staff has noted that there's just not enough property on the Whit Davis side, but we can
Okay.
certainly give you a more detailed response in the follow-up report.
Commissioner Myers?
Yeah, following up, while you're getting that answer to that question, when you go into just a review again for us, so we do have that answer, when you pull into Southeast Clarke Park, immediately on the left, I'm looking at the picture on Google Map, there's 2 parcels there, and I was just, they don't actually look, I mean, the place where it's going doesn't look any bigger than these 2 parcels, so I'm just curious about that as well, if we can find an answer on that. Because that does, I mean, having that transfer station by the World of Wonder Playground doesn't actually sound like the best idea in the world either, but this would be bringing that sort of transit bus feel right into the park, right over there by the skate park. So I do want to make sure that I understand why we can't put it in some of those other places that are closer to the front. The other thing I was going to ask on this, two questions, one comment and one question. One is, do we have funding for this transit center yet, or this?
We do.
We do have that, and that's,
TSPLOST, and then there's $1 million of federal funds.
okay. And then the other thing is that I noticed right in the beginning of the history that it has, there's a comment that in October 1st, 1996, the mayor and commission approved the major project site selection process. That is 28 years ago now, almost. And we have not, I don't know if we have reviewed that. And as many of you know, we're having some challenges with site selection, and we have a process that we're sticking with because it's been there. I might suggest to the mayor and to the county manager that we, bring that up into someone's agenda to review that and look at that a little bit more closely.
Thank you, Commissioner Myers, and we're looking at our processes as a whole. That's one of the processes that we're reviewing right now as far as site selection. But if I could go back to the question of why not the Whit-Davis side. So not only is it the size of the property, the National Environmental Protection Act is a process by which, it takes months, if not years, to get authorization from the federal government to do certain things. So this particular site on the Whit-Davis side would require a full-on NEPA process. But we will get you more information on that.
Commissioner Davenport, follow-up?
Okay, just for the sake of the community, how much, can you find out how much this skate park costs and how much it would cost to relocate it? Because according to Leads of Service, they're gonna redo it or build another one. So, it just, for the sake of those individuals who utilize that park, just to move it to somewhere that's less congested and not a lot of noise. If I can get that cost, that'd be great.
And Commissioner Davenport, some of what I'm hearing kind of in your query is, how would we ensure that people get safely to and from some of those existing facilities within Southeast Clarke Park? So I imagine you're interested in hearing that from staff.
Just keep it, and for the colleagues and for the public, like, people go to parks for quiet, for peace, for recreation. Buses are loud. You got people are entering, but the buses are entering and exiting at the main corridor of this park. And, it's a gym for the east side. I don't like to keep it peaceful. So any other, just looking at all of our options to make sure that we keep it a park.
Hopefully, as we move to a fully electric fleet, we'll have at least somewhat quieter vehicles. Commissioner Link?
Yeah, how many vehicles per hour would be coming in and out of this facility? This isn't like a full-on multimodal center. This is a kind of perimeter transfer.
It is a transfer facility. The site's scheduled or designed for 2 buses. The headways on that, I'm not quite clear on, but I do know eventually, when we build out our bus system, our transit network, we do want to increase headway times to eventually, maybe 15 to 20-minute headways. So, there would be traffic coming through there.
So at this point, if it's for 2 buses, it would be like 2 an hour coming in and out. Because
Probably a little more than 2 an hour
Okay.
if we're doing 15 to 20-minute headways eventually, but initially maybe 4 an hour.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to move on to item number 7, and this is the Atlanta Highway / West Broad Street improvements, the project concept of which we discussed at a recent work session. Commissioner Houle?
Thank you, Mayor. I just had a question for staff on this one, too, and I wish I brought it up at the work session. We talked a whole bunch about trees after this item, but not on this item. And so I'm just curious, noting the seeming agreement a lot of us had on the importance of shade and trees for bike and pedestrian facilities, how will tree planting be a part of both the new sidewalks that are going to be part of this, but also the existing ones that are pretty treeless along much of that stretch?
Certainly, and the concept that y'all are seeing right now is still fairly high level, but We do anticipate wherever we can, planting on both sides of the road. And if we cannot plant on one side of the road, we will ensure that large shade trees are on the other side of the road.
And Manager Jones, kind of to that end, if, whether it's trees or some other elements that commissioners want to see, what would those be things that would be valuable to embed kind of in a motion when we get to voting night?
Absolutely, and I think we still, luckily, still have a number of months ahead of us for design. But if you have ideas, please certainly email us and let us know what you might want to see. But rest assured that we'll certainly prioritize trees.
Okay, yeah, I guess, sorry. I came into this thinking that probably we didn't need to embed it in a motion for it to still happen, but am I hearing that maybe it would be good to include that in a motion to make sure it's prioritized as it moves from concept to design?
But my sense is that it couldn't hurt to be explicit about the things that you want to see in the ultimate design.
Okay, I guess with that in mind, I will ask to keep it off consent, and maybe if in more conversation it seems wise, we'll, put a prudent, explicit mention for, shout out for trees on there.
Commissioner Link?
Yeah, I regret that I was unable to attend the work session on this as I was out of town, but I'm very excited about this project. God knows that this stretch of West Broad is in need of desperate help, and we've had many pedestrian fatalities, not to mention like auto wrecks on this stretch. I'm particularly concerned about the inner part of West Broad where you have dense in-town neighborhoods on either side. The one thing that really stuck out to me is the elimination of access for Magnolia Street. Magnolia Street is effectively a through street connecting West Broad and Baxter Street. It is the primary corridor for folks who live in the Normal Town and West Boulevard neighborhoods. That's how we get to Baxter Street. That's how we get to Alps, instead of having to go all the way up to Alps and turn on Alps. You've got major destinations, the library, Clark Middle. Folks I know who carpool to Clark Middle, they use Magnolia Street. You've got St. Mary's, doctor's offices. I have a couple doctors on Baxter that I use Magnolia to get there. This would funnel all of that traffic up to Alps Road and through that hot mess in Alps, or through the Hancock neighborhood, through these very, very narrow streets in the Hancock neighborhood to get to Rock Springs and go through the Clark Central School Zone, which is a hot mess when those buses are unloading. So I'm going to propose that we assure that Magnolia Street remain accessible. You have a similar issue at the Kalima and Evans Street intersections, but those are not through streets, and folks living on those streets have easy access to Magnolia Street through the neighborhoods, just a block or so away. And there is some conversation with folks on Magnolia Street. I've referred them to our staff for traffic calming measures. We have a deer crossing issue on Magnolia Street. So I want to assure that Magnolia remains accessible all the way through, so that those westbound lanes remain accessible.
Commissioner Hamby?
Sure. Manager Jones, so certainly I agree with Commissioner Link on that about Magnolia. So is this something that could be fixed on the administrative side, or does Commissioner Link need to put together a CDO directing that action about Magnolia?
Well, if I could get back to you all on this, so this is a GDOT project, and our TPW staff is really acting as a consultant on this. However, that being said, we can certainly relay your concerns to GDOT. Now, GDOT has identified Magnolia Street, Colima, and Evans as high conflict areas. But that being said, maybe it's not all three, maybe it's just one. But TPW certainly can relay this information, and whether it's a CDO, either way.
Yeah, I foresee this, this really helping that conflict, because right now you have to cruise across 6 or 7 lanes of traffic to make that left turn onto Magnolia. With that median, it'll be 2. So I feel like if you could just assure that there is a turn lane, that will certainly make it safer, because it will now be 2 instead of the 2 lanes and the other turn lane.
And Kalima and Evans aren't that far from here, so
No,
it'd be
they're
easy to
not.
have
It would
us-
be, it's pretty accessible for folks living on Kalima and Evans to get to Magnolia if they need to get to those westbound lanes. I really would love to see a drop-in public input session on this. This is a massive project. This is like, what, a mile plus of major roadway with probably thousands of residents living on it and huge volume. We had that for Chase Street. We had that for the roundabout project. I really would love to, potentially pull this from the agenda and let it go a month and have one of those drop-in input sessions so the public understands what's coming, because this is big. And it's great. We're going to see lighting. We're going to see that shared use path. We're going to get some long overdue improvements this corridor. But I feel like the public deserves to know intimately what to expect.
Commissioner Myers?
Yeah, I'm following up on what Commissioner Link just brought up, and really want to ask perhaps the manager if there's a response to that, because my question was, this is a GTOT project. Has that affected the public input? Because we've just gotten a couple of emails today about that as well, asking about that, and how did that affect the development process for this design, the fact that it's a GDOT versus an Athens-Clarke County project?
So it's a good question, and GDOT, as you know, they will hold their own public engagement, maybe not to the level that we expect, but they will have their own level of public engagement. So currently, they are in the traffic study phase of things, and they have not yet held public engagement.
So this is very conceptual
This is
right now.
very preliminary.
Okay, so there's
Yes.
plenty of room and time to get that input and to change.
Yes, ma'am. And, the input that you're giving us today, we will certainly relay to GDOT.
Okay.
And this will come back to us at some point.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Hool?
Thank you, Mayor. Maybe we just arrived here, but I guess, hearing that this is basically us just giving our input to GDOT, who ultimately has authority over us, but we hope that they care what we have to say. Maybe just getting together for a CDO that specifies our preference to, retain some kind of vehicular access to Magnolia and also ensure that shade is provided and trees are planted is a thing that we can do, but keep it moving on the regular schedule.
That is a desperate need, the shade.
All right, moving to another quarter, and another one we discussed at the recent work session. This is preliminary engineering plans for the North Avenue Raise Grant project. Commissioner Thorne.
I do appreciate the presentation that we got at the work session, and I immediately reached out to folk in the district. Even though there's going to be a public meeting on October, I think the 22nd, at the Boys and Girls Club, I think that the public input, folk are going to come out, but I don't think that when we get to a place where we're saying that time is running out, that we got to get things done, I don't want to push back on the work of staff and the consultants, but I do think that, and I've been in contact with interim manager Nikki the best we could, to keep them abreast of the concerns that are coming up. Right now, the roundabout is like no from the folk that I've sent this to. I've even sent the PowerPoint out to different people in the community. They don't feel like they've had enough time, and on the 22nd, it's going to be a presentation. But please do not, I don't think we should anticipate a vote in November, because I think there's a lot more information that's coming out. It's almost the same thing that I've heard about all the other items on this agenda. When do we get public input? When do we hear what the public says and then come back with a plan? It's just kind of backwards to me. So I've heard it for several other items that have come out, even down to the haulers. We come up with things and then we push it out. The other thing that was concerning to me, I think that the developer, the consultants came on officially in April. Is that April of this year, or was that April of last year?
I believe it's this year.
If the consultants came on in April, and we've been knowing about this money for the last at least 2 years, I don't think that we should be intimidated by not meeting the deadline. I don't know why it took so long to get a consultant on this project. We were awarded this grant. When were we awarded this grant? Somebody help me.
I think it's 2022 timeframe.
2022. And here we're almost to the end of 2024, and we just brought on a consultant in 2024. I think that we owe this community a little, I'm wrong?
I might be wrong, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I'm trying to confirm. right
Well, I'm sorry. You can correct it later, if you like. I just don't think we're going to be ready for a vote in November. Maybe I'm not reading the tea leaves clearly, but I don't think that we're going to be ready. I shouldn't say for a vote. I don't think I'll be ready to be supportive of this, because I do hear the constituents' concerns. Now, I've told people to attend the meeting on the 22nd so they can share their input then. We also have a community meeting coming up this coming Thursday. So we're playing catch-up from 2 years ago. And the worst thing that we can do is have people storm in here because they did not know until the last minute. So I know we're on a deadline, but being on this deadline, I do not think it is the residents' fault that we are having our back up against the wall. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. And just to point everybody to roughly history items 20 through 30, that there's sort of an iterative process of engagement between local staff and the Federal Highway Administration just to meet kind of certain project delivery benchmarks. And so it appears that some of that was just sort of the natural flow of the project to us, particularly through the first half of 2023. I've got Commissioner Taylor.
I agree with what Commissioner Thornton said. I'm not against the safety precautions of what's being proposed, but I do think that it's very important that we do reach out to the public to get their feedback on this. I literally drive that bridge every morning. My children don't go to school in District 3. They go to school in District 9. And I know that the consultant said during the work session that most of the traffic gets on the loop, but we also have a high volume of residents that work coming to the downtown area. And I think making the bridge, and I'm not against the shared path, because I do know how dangerous it is walking across that bridge. But to eliminate a lane, and then put a roundabout, for me, it would cause more frustration and accidents than just making a shared path or a sidewalk as an improvement, instead of making a roundabout at the red light to then go to like if you were going to go back to the Lexington Road or Oconee Way, whatever. And so that's my public input as a resident who used that bridge. So.
Commissioner Link.
Yeah, we have a drop dead deadline on this, don't we? What is that, to actually begin this and break ground?
I want to give you a straight answer here, but I don't have one, because recipients of the RAISE grant all across our country are struggling right now to get the grant agreement. So 2026 is the current deadline, but we are hoping that that deadline gets extended. And you know, the mayor, myself, and some other folks went to Atlanta to talk to Commissioner McMurray. He's well aware of the situation. I think the federal government's well aware of the situation. So it's our hope that in the future, this will get extended. But to answer your question, 2026.
Is that extension dependent on congressional action or transportation department action, which could change?
It'd be congressional action.
Okay.
And they provided that extension for the prior class of recipients, the 2021 class of recipients. So there seems to be recent understanding of just the volume of engineering work that's going on right now and the
Yeah, I
necessity
mean,
to give a little bit of breathing room.
Yeah,
And
that's what I understand the delay was. I mean, these grants have been awarded across the country, and these engineering groups are tied up in every other state. And we've also had to work with CSX when it came to questions surrounding the railroad bridge and GDOT when it came to the loop bridge. So, I mean, I certainly understand the delays here. I mean, a lot of construction projects are delayed. And I understand we have it drop dead, and I just want to warn y'all, we don't know what the federal government's going to look like come January. So we need to consider that.
got Commissioner Myers and Commissioner Davenport.
Yeah, I just want us to look at those deadlines carefully and be prepared for them. I did a little, research on the RAISE grants, and there were 1.8 billion available this year, but there were $13 billion in requests. So we were lucky to get these, and our staff worked really hard to pull all this together. The almost $25 million, that's a lot of money. Okay, so I just want to, I want to have the public input, and there has been some. We had a whole couple of slides on the public input, but I don't want us to lose that as well going forward. So I just want us to be mindful of that.
Commissioner Davenport.
Just want to make sure staff are aware about our public, not our public, but some of the comments that were made at our agenda setting, our work session about the sidewalks in the roundabout. Is that the additional sidewalk necessary? And just for the mayor to, if this is approved, just to take in consideration connectivity to Prince Avenue.
Commissioner Thornton.
Again, it amazes me again when we get so, I'm the same all the time, and I'm gonna tell you exactly what the small group I met with said on Sunday. If this is what we're just pushing through something because we got $24 million and it doesn't take care of the problems, let them take the money back. Now, that's not my wish. 24 million is a lot. But I noticed that different folk have different opinions when it comes to certain things, when it comes to money. And Commissioner Myers just mentioned about she saw a list of people that were, I guess, part of the input or stakeholders. It was not the residents that live on that road. It was staff and with some of the other agencies. The first meeting of residents is going to be, official meeting is going to be October the 22nd. And I don't know why we won't go to our constituents first. I just don't understand that. Now, we keep selling our soul to the devil because of money. Let's make some moral integrity decisions based on the constituents and their needs. Now, I don't fight y'all about nothing else except my district. But it seems like you keep wanting to ignore District 9. Now, we're meeting Thursday at, I don't even know, y'all, you got the flyers. Come and hear what they got to say if you want both sides of the story. And then go to the October the 22nd meeting. But I think that the fact that we brought on a consultant in April that is less than 6 months, and you're asking us to make a vote on their recommendations without input. So I'm just saying November may not be a good vote date regardless of the deadline.
Commissioner Houle.
I just wanted to clarify if there's any potential opportunity for an additional meeting to have like a special called session after November 6th and before the deadline.
Certainly. Yes.
Okay. I think it would be a huge loss for us to miss out on an insanely large grant from the federal government. I mean, $25 million, we're talking about an amount that's nearly half of the total ARPA award. I mean, it can be really, truly transformative to the corridor. So here, Commissioner Thornton's concerns about we need to make sure that whatever that transformation is understood by and supported by the residents who are going to use it. But we would also really be, hurting ourselves and the residents by not finding a way to use the large amount of money that can provide a safer, better corridor.
Well, thanks for the input, everyone. Definitely look forward to the engagement on Thursday. I think we always find even better information when we go out more. And certainly, I think the initial recommended model is one that will ensure a safer corridor for everybody. I'm very, very frequently, almost every day on this corridor, either as a pedestrian or motorist. The large grocery store very near Athens Technical College is my main big weekly grocery store shop and a place where I get my cheap gas. And this is where I tend to kind of recreate and spend a lot of time on foot too. And so kind of the notion that we could create a safer dynamic for those in motor vehicles and a safer dynamic for those not in motor vehicles is something I look forward to. I will make one interesting note historically on kind of use of roundabouts in Clarke County. When we put in the very first one at the corner of Whitehead and Tallahassee Road, ahead of installation of that roundabout, I got a lot of very frustrated email and some phone calls. But two of the specific folks who had emailed or called frustrated after installation came back and said, I didn't know how good it would be. I really appreciate that it does create a safer conduit for traffic. Commissioner.
Mayor, you were the commissioner before me. And what I think we need to do is kind of put our heads together and talk about what we can continue to do that didn't get done under your commission. These folk I'm talking to are the everyday folk, that's all. And I just feel as though I'm articulating that they feel like we don't need to keep telling them what's best for them. And everything that we pay for is not good. So there's two opportunities if this commission wants to be, look at both sides. There's a meeting on Thursday and there's a meeting on the 22nd. And show up there and listen for yourself. I'm going to keep, I told Manager Jones, I will not blindside him. Everything that people have been calling me about or texting me about, wanting to meet about, I let him know. And I'll be glad to let any of all you know. But please do not try to think for these folk because of $24 million.
Commissioner Thornton, I can promise that, our staff will certainly engage with you and your constituents, as you know we will. I do want to say the RAISE grant across our country, formerly the Tiger grant, is a pretty prestigious grant. And Commissioner Myers, you did point out the number of people that submit applications to this. That doesn't mean that we just take it lightly. And we're not.
I'm not going to sell my soul to the devil, okay?
All right, we're going to go ahead and take a look at two items associated with the mental health recovery facility. The first of these is a budget amendment for sanitary sewer system modification for the schematic plan. We learned, of course, that one of the multiple ways that we can handle volume of flow is to do some kind of temporary containment until we wait for dry weather conditions for that flow to drain down the line, and this takes advantage of that. So any input on this? Commissioner
Sure. Thank you, Mayor.
Hamby?
Appreciate it. I just have a couple of questions for Manager Jones. Just help me understand, it says here that the $2 million will be coming from the Public Utilities Fund, when I look at attachment 1, it says increase the sewer line evaluation and rehabilitation up to 2 million and expenditures increase. Should there be a decrease in there somewhere from?
It should, yes. So it is going to come out of the sewer line and rehabilitation line item in the PUD account.
So when we see this at our voting session, the attachment 1 will have a decrease
Yes, sir.
associated with the increase? Okay.
Yes, sir.
The second thing I have to ask, and I'm curious, I mean, we had a presentation about this, and it's an interesting new system. It seems like a glorified septic tank to me, but I know it's more than that. But will this be able, and I know we have, the first phase of the Advantage, and Commissioner Hoole's on their board, so he probably knows more about this than I do, but they have the first phase planned out, ready to go, and this will help make that happen. Will it help accommodate the second phase I guess we're still waiting on a grant from the state for that second phase, but once we are ready for a second phase, are we going to have to do extra work to accommodate that?
We're designing it to accommodate both phases. You're right, it's a bit of a glorified septic tank, however, it is connected to the sewer system, yes, sir, and it slowly lets it out if it need be.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Commissioner Fisher?
Yeah, Commissioner Hammond sort of answered my question. I was somewhat concerned about the sewer and how it's going to run, how it's going to flow. My other question is, though, once we get that fixed, and if some other development near there comes online, we would be able to support that sewer system moving forward?
That's a good question.
Or will we have to add in more capacity? 'Cause, again, my thing is, and I hate trying to be the dead horse, but I truly believe we got to take a look at our sewer capacities in this community and figure out where we can construct stuff. And I know we got spots where we can go, but I think we just need to look at the overall sewer system in Clarke County. But I do want to know if we decide to expand some type of development, and I'm not sure what that development would be, since it's in my district. I want to know whether or not that sewer capacity, what we got presently now, would be able to handle any more development.
This particular fix solution will not add capacity.
Okay, well, that's a concern for me then. And to Commissioner Hammond's point, I think, we gotta, if it's something that we can fix or make better, I think we can do it now while we doing it. I don't want to see just a septic tank per se, just there just for that facility. I think we got to think a little bit global, locally, in order for us to fix these things. So I know we got to have it because it's part of that development, but I got concerns about that and stuff. So, and I wish we had known that on the front end too. So, and we didn't, and we find these things. That's why I said it's so vital that we do some type of on our sewer capacity in Clarke County.
RFP, make sure we have the best consultant to help us out with that, and we're going to understand what flows are going through all our pipes through our entire county. Now that's going to be a long process, but you're right. We need to understand our capacity.
Commissioner Myers?
Yeah, didn't I read here in somewhere that it was like the bigger fix that Commissioner Fisher is talking about is going to, like, there are plans to have that bigger fix, but it'll take 10 years or something along that, or my...
Along that particular middle
Yeah.
Oconee line, yes.
And that this was a sort of the quick solution
measure.
to dealing with what we're dealing right now. And this sewer box that we're talking about, that's the same one we were talking about at the work session, where there would be one in, I think there was discussion of something on the Cedar Creek, the same concept,
Possibly, that's right.
possibly, something along those lines.
So this would be the first time we've implemented this type of project. So call it a pilot, if you will. To answer your question along the middle Oconee line, we know that we have to repair in place several miles of line. And the good news is that it's already in the service delivery plan. The bad news is that's going to take, 3 to 5 years to completely repair and replace.
Commissioner Davenport?
No, Commissioner Fisher had asked my question and concerns. So I do have just looking at the bigger fix of the 10-year and fixing the problem, because this is essentially just a temporary fix. And I asked this in the work session, like, once 10 years from now, what happens to this temporary fix? Do we continue to service it? Do we pull it up off the ground, or it's just there forever?
There are maintenance responsibilities right now, and we still need to figure all this out, but right now, if you're asking me, belong to Advantage.
Okay.
And, they won't be in it by themselves. Our PUD staff will be right there with them. And when the time comes on to connect to the sewer, we will have a number of decision points. We could just connect directly to the sewer, or we can just keep it how it is, just depending on, where we are and what the assessment says.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Hamby? No. Commissioner Hool?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to seek from the manager some clarity. We have these different documents, and some of them are changing some things and some are changing others. So could you just kind of walk us through briefly, like, which things are being changed in which documents? Because some of this is about sewer and some of this is about ARPA funding being added in. And
Well, there's 2 agenda items. One's related to adding the ARPA funding, and the other is for the general contractor. So the one particular funding or the contract we're amending to add ARPA funds, there was $1.4 million obligated, I believe, in May of this year. We just need to add it to the IGA, which would add it to the contract officially. So that's all we're doing there.
okay.
And then the follow-on agreement is with the actual general contractor to actually build the facility.
To build the facility.
Yeah, so that's the next agenda item.
Okay. And there's nothing else changing in the contract besides those things that you just outlined?
No, and sorry, I missed this part. PUD is going to pay $2 million from their fund to
Yeah.
give to the project.
Yeah, and also, I've sent a draft of the amendment to the IGA to the executive director and attorney for Advantage, and I'm just waiting on them to confirm they're good with it, and I'll issue it, send it out to the mayor and commission, add it to the agenda item. Hopefully, we'll hear back any day.
Any other questions on this before we move on to the conjoined next item? And next one is just the as-yet named contractor. Any questions about that? All right, moving on to item 11, that's the LRC report regarding franchising of residential collection. Commissioner Myers, I don't know if you want to begin by providing an overview?
Oh, yes, yeah, okay, we the other construction thing we took care of already. All right, all right.
I'm sorry, before you get it, we're not putting 10 on consent though, right?
No, we can't because we don't have a bid back
Right,
yet.
there's nothing in there. Yeah, I'm glad to give a little overview of this on the residential collection franchising, and just to make sure that we're all on the same page about what we're doing here. First of all, really, as the chair of the LRC, we spent, I think, 4 meetings discussing this, and really the last meeting was a review of the work session PowerPoint, and the idea was to move it forward to the larger commission, as much to get this out into the public and to get the conversation going. We did not, I personally, for example, do not know which way I'm going on. And so in some way, I might come back to the manager's office and say that the LRC actually recommended discussion of the adoption of these items rather than adoption of the items, just to clarify for what was going on there. The other thing, and this is fair, I know there's a lot of people in the public or so forth, you can look at, page 4 of the agenda report to see all the reasons why. And for me, this was a big thing. I kept repeating, we need to know the why of why we're doing it. Why are we making this big change? And so I would, refer my colleagues in the public to look over there. And I also want to make it clear that even if this item was approved, and I'm not saying, I don't know what the future will bring here, this is only the first step. There would be subsequent commission votes. There's not an ordinance. We'd have to go and develop an ordinance and pass that ordinance, and that wouldn't be till next summer. So this is not a one vote and it's all, it's all going to happen. So I just want to make sure that those items are clear. I share actually many of the concerns that have been expressed tonight from residents, both of whom are in my district. The effect on recycling, if there's no cost incentive to recycle, and the use of these very large trash containers. Yes, maybe we'd have improved trash service overall, but there's not the differentiation in cost per household, where if you, on your water bill right now, if there's one person living in a house, you pay less because you use less water. In this system that we're looking at, as laid out here, everyone would be paying the same, and that includes the 7,000 households that do not get trash because they self-haul or, recycle every single little item in there. Funding a consultant might give us better data to work from. It's clear we're an outlier in the comparable communities in terms of how we deal with trash across the county. And for those of you who are in this or out in public listening to this, go into that agenda report and look at the comparables there. We've never done that as a community before, so we have more information there. In the end, speaking as one commissioner, I need to be certain that the positive effects of trash franchising plan truly result in a measurable good for the community as a whole and clearly outweigh the effects on individual households that are so clearly communicated to us tonight and in various emails that we got. So what we're doing now is presenting this discussion. I've probably got about a dozen, 15 emails here. We have a public comment. Hopefully, we can hear from our fellow commissioners and make a little bit more decision about how to move forward with this. It's an interesting history reading over this, how long it's gone on for. So it's been many, many years. I think it started in the early 2000s. So the discussion continues.
Commissioner Hamby?
Sure, thank you. Yeah, it's been for me, it's been a 16-year discussion. And I'll be honest with y'all, I haven't yet heard a good rationale for us to do this, to move in this direction. I think, we do a good job of bringing trouble on ourselves, and we don't need to go looking for it. So I do have some questions for our attorney in trying to understand what it is we're trying to do. So certainly hire a consultant, do an RFP for that, and then that consultant's going to tell us we need to do an RFP. It says in what I remember in the presentation, we have 5 zones currently now. We'd go to 4, but it was during the presentation that we don't want to lose any of our current haulers. So how is an RFP process, a legitimate RFP process, going to ensure that we maintain our current haulers as they are now?
I don't think there's any way to ensure that, as we talked about in the work session. I was looking at this I was looking at the resolution, what, it says there'll be a resolution attached, and I could read out what you just read.
No, you don't have to.
No, I don't think there's any way to assure that. I don't know a way to do that.
So one of the haulers would probably be out of the picture.
Well,
All of them could be.
I think.
All of them, actually, all of
them.
them could be. Yeah, you could have
Unless you agree
Tony.
you're going to have 2, or you agree you're going to have 3, you're going to pick the best top 3.
Well, you could have you could have Tony Soprano out here bidding on all
You
of
could
them.
have all new ones. I mean, you
Yeah.
could have somebody come in, another large hauler, and win the.
Right.
If you're going.
Well, and I think that's a.
And I'm not familiar. I wanted to get some more comfort with how you would propose if you decide to send an RFP. I think the commission, if you're going to divide it into zones, it's a little uncertain to me how you can assure one gets it. I don't think.
Well, and I
you can.
guess I say this, the narrative that's been presented to us is that the 5 haulers as they exist now wouldn't be out of business. But That's not the correct
That's
narrative.
not correct.
I don't, yeah, and if that's what, it's my understanding that I wasn't at the committee meeting, but Sherry advised me that she informed the committee that that wasn't the case.
Right. Okay. Well, I guess I'll just say this, like I said, this discussion's been going on for 16 years, and there hasn't been a good, in my mind, maybe in others there is, but a good rationale for it. I mean, unless the county is wanting to provide the service, grow our service and provide the service and really truly make things equal, then we need to move on from this. Maybe, send it back to committee, let y'all do what you're going to do there, and just not let us see it again would be a really nice thing on your part. So, thank you.
It's the Mike Hamby heart relief valve.
Put it in whatever trash can you want to.
The Commissioner Thornton.
I served on the LRC, and I listened objectively, and I did think it was a good idea to bring it before the commission during a work session. There was so much division and questions at the work session. I don't even think it should have even, we should have sent, after the work session, we should have sent it back. After going to ACCG's meeting, we listened to people who've it didn't solve a problem. So it makes you ask, what is the problem? And when folk call me on a Sunday talking about trash, this is serious. So, and I didn't know how serious it was until I got this call. But the other thing that bothers me, or not bothers me, I need to be more positive. The other thing that is on my mind, Mayor, is that we have a solid waste committee. Patrick, are you on there? Mm-hmm. We have a solid waste committee. They've been talking about some of this. Then we were talking about it in LRC. You had two different conversations going on, and never the twin met. So I would like to see this go back to committee, and maybe it won't raise its head again, Mike, I don't know. But I don't think that, I think that the community has spoken, and we should listen. And after ACCGov's meeting, from talking to other people, and I wish Allison was here because she was she did her little project on this. We had a little work thing. So she would really, really be able to expound upon what she found out in that work session. So, no, this is not ready to come out the stove. It's not baked, y'all.
Got a couple folks, Commissioners Houle, Lincoln, Culpepper.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I mean, I don't think the community is of one mind on this. We're hearing from some members now with concerns, and I think some of those might just be differences of opinion. Some of those might be meaningfully addressed with a solid presentation of all the facts. I definitely have plenty of folks in my district, which is pretty much entirely outside the service district of Clarke County's municipal services. And lots of folks want this and other folks don't. I think when we hear about people in the outskirts of the county disappointed in the failed follow-through on the promise of unification, solid waste services is one of the things people raise up. So this doesn't provide municipal solid waste services, but I think maybe with some tweaking, this could be a bridge to that. What I'm hearing from Attorney Drake, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but there's ways that we can approach the RFP process to try to put some guardrails around it. We can't guarantee who the bidders are going to be at the outset, obviously, but we could, for example, say that there will be different bidders for each zone, or something like that, or different contractors for each zone.
I'm not sure about that. I haven't
okay.
done extra research. I need to, most time you put out RFP and you're asking for you want the best price, So
Yeah.
I need to look, or not just on price, but on a collection of factors of which price is one. But I need to understand, I don't know, I'm not familiar with where a government has set up this. Most time the government selects one to do the whole, but maybe you could do it this way. It would just be a novel approach. To my knowledge, I'm not aware of a government having done it that way before.
Well, we
Being
love
novel
a novel approach.
Yeah,
sometimes.
being novel has never stopped us before. though. I mean, so,
You know, what's interesting though
so I'm
about
not sure I
novel-
can agree with what you're saying. You know, I said we can research. it, you
Okay,
know.
yeah.
That's
Well, I guess
why-
the conversation continues and is not over about what can be done to try to provide a better chance for existing haulers than just totally, you know, the same as what we've seen elsewhere and one person gets it all, or one company gets it all. But, you know, I'm glad the novel jokes. I mean, one of the things that's novel about what we do in Clarke County is our trash service the way we currently do it. And that's one of the things that we really learned in our presentation here is that of all the communities we looked at that they considered comparable in Georgia and even in other states, we're the only one with districts this small and this type of agreement that our code calls franchising but is actually not franchising. It's just a permit that doesn't allow us the types of enforcement that we benefit from greatly and that our, you know, residents would benefit from greatly. You know, whether this as presented is the way forward or not, you know, I think there's definitely room for us to look at elements of this, roll cart size and things like that. But there's a lot about what we're doing that isn't working. And I think for every person who comes out when we propose this concerned about it, there is at least another who's come to us before, or if you look at the survey we did circulate in 2019 about this, where we have hundreds of responses from residents who are unhappy with their service as it is, who are unhappy with the number of trucks that go down the street, who are unhappy with the private hauler that prioritizes other communities over ours, because in other communities there is a franchising agreement like this, and so when they are short-staffed or when there is a weather event, they go there because they know that they'll be fined or something, and they skip us. And unfortunately, the free market doesn't give individual, you know, residents of a community as much sway as a company, even though smaller companies don't have as much sway as bigger ones. So maybe we can find a way to structure our RFP that tries to give a fair shake to smaller service providers. I think that that's a wise thing for us to do insofar as we're able. But when we think about the short life of our landfill, when we think about the massive proliferation of dumping and litter, when we think about the huge burden that self-hauling puts on our staff and the landfill in turn, the number of people that are bringing trash and commercial haulers that are bringing trash from other communities into our landfill, we've got to do something different. And I hope that we will keep that conversation going, even if we change what we're talking about from what's currently before us tonight.
Commissioner Link?
Yeah, I mean, I have mixed feelings about this too, and I'm wondering if we couldn't just hold these companies to a higher standard before issuing permits. Assure that all of the companies that are permitted to haul offer mandate recycling. You know, that they're not just hauling a can full of mixed recyclables and trash, but they have a 2-can system like we do, you know, within the urban services district, hold them to the same standards we hold ourselves. And as far as the fines go, I mean, $300 is not a very large incentive to quit dumping your trash in a dead end somewhere. I mean, that's about what you pay for the whole year of trash services, and you may or may not get caught. I'd like to see us be more aggressive with the fining system. We have these cameras out. We are able to catch people. I mean, I would bet that we're spending a lot more money in staff time just issuing the fines than the actual fines themselves. I did a ride-along with one of our Athens-Clarke County solid waste haulers, and I learned a lot about how crappy people are about handling their trash and mixing their recycling and putting all kinds of dangerous and flammable items and appliances into their bins that our employees have to fish out and endanger themselves. I'd like to see us start slapping fines on those residents. You know, you may not be able to get the actual offenders who might be renters, but if you start fining the property owners, then they can pass that on. You know, we have all this literature that we send out in the mail on how to properly handle your trash and how to recycle and how to be a good citizen, and I guarantee you it goes right in the trash, even if it's recyclable. I think that, you know, coming up with a more aggressive fining system might be the best means of educating folks on how to properly handle their trash and take care of this planet and our landfill with a limited capacity.
Got Commissioner Culpepper and then Commissioner Fisher.
Yes, I agree with Commissioner Link. Now, one of the first things, I'm on the LRC also, and one of the first questions I asked when this came up is, why don't we just put more teeth in the permitting process? So we've got these haulers, because when it was first presented to us, the issue was poor customer service. Well, if we allow the free market, somebody that's providing poor customer service, they're going to be out of business. They're going to lose customers. So if we can put more teeth into the permit process, I think that would be a better solution. It's not cost nearly as much as franchising, and it might not be as controversial.
Commissioner Fisher.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I want to ask my attorney a question. What about HOAs? Say if we used to go to this franchising and as much power as HOAs have in this, in each neighborhood, they could deny not having a franchise if you would do that. Right now, some HOAs, they allow you a certain hauler. My HOA, we get to pick who we can bring into our neighborhood, so that's okay. So would you take a look about what possible effect that will have on HOAs, because
You're saying some HOAs designate
a hauler to come to that particular neighborhood based on their covenants. My HOA, we can pick our hauler, it doesn't matter. But because of the strength of the HOAs around the state, they carry a lot of weight. So when we start talking about trying to franchise, we better make sure that if we do this, that we're not getting sued by HOAs saying, well, it's not part of our covenant.
Okay, I'll take a
So
look at
if you
that.
just take a look at that, but I think also, and one other thing, I'm not sure what way we're gonna go, but I don't want us to spend $100,000 or whatever it costs to get a consultant when all of us have seen what we have gotten from our constituents. And like Commissioner Thornton said, I'm getting calls on Sunday from our constituents. So I don't want us to spend the money when we know, and I hadn't seen the survey in 2019, and maybe we need to do another survey. I don't want us to go and spend $100,000, and we're not gonna go to franchise. And I think the majority of our constituents want things to stay the way they are. If I'm reading the tea leaves right now, I have not heard one person say that's franchise. Now maybe I'm missing something, but I have not heard. So I don't want us to spend that $100,000 if we don't have to.
Commissioner Davenport.
Yes. I'm excited that we're having this discussion. I really am. And I thank Karen Myers and LRC to bringing it up to a full commission vote. And I was hoping to see more people here, but it's always lovely to see former Commissioner Harrod here. But if the Mayor and Commission, y'all allow me an additional 3 minutes, I'll get through this pretty quickly. Just bear with me. So, but yes, we do need to have this discussion, because I think one of the things well, first of all, to the general public, as it is written, I wouldn't lose sleep on this. It's highly doubtful come November 6th that this will pass or anything will pass out of this. So I won't sweat too much. But I got more than 15 emails, and I feel that I was targeted, which is fine. And I appreciate that. But why do we keep bringing this up? Let's start there. That's a good question. It's not me, it's not staff. We do have legitimate concerns from constituents in neighborhoods who have concerns about the amount of trucks that enter and exit these individual neighborhoods. I'm dealing with 2 issues now in my district where residents are complaining about the amount of trucks that speed through their neighborhood. One neighborhood is literally one road, and they have all 5 trash haulers, and there's always a bin out. And people complain about the site of the trash bin. They complain about the amount of trucks. They want to go walking in the morning. The trucks are speeding through. And just for the edification of the public, the axles on a dump truck is different from the axle on the UPS and FedEx trucks. So the weight that's on a dump truck is going to cause more damage to your roads than the axle on a FedEx truck. And but also, I'm hearing from, not a lot, but I'm hearing from businesses who complain of service theft. You know, I've done it, some of us have done it, where we take our trash from home, and instead of, taking it to the landfill, we take it to our place of employment. So some of the businesses are complaining that, hey, why does ACC charge me extra for more delivery, or extra for an extra dumpster? And, they complain that why does the trash, the individual trash, the private haulers, why do they have to charge me extra for an extra dump truck or a dumpster when I only have 7 employees at my place of work, and my trash dumpster is always getting full? So businesses are paying for this. Residents are paying for this. Also, if you look at some of the streets, there's no way, I'm not mentioning the name, that some of these culverts are failing because of the rain. I agree. Some of the weather conditions are conducive for some of the damage, well, most of the damage that we see. But some of these roads are being damaged, not just by the FedEx and these UPS trucks. It's clearly by the heavy weight of these dump trucks. So I get it. We can keep the status quo. That's fine. Albeit people want to not agree with me about what I'm about to say, but I am for small government. I hate government intrusion. But folks in our community, we all have to understand that the main reason why I'm fighting for this is the cost. So let's go look in the cost. Okay, annually, we had a presentation last Tuesday, and we looked at partial the cost when it comes to illegal dumping. That's just partial the cost. So if you look at all the legal dumping that's happening across county, if you look at all the departments, because everybody keep thinking solid waste pick up our trash. That's not true. Transit pick up our trash, landscape management pick up our trash, leisure service pick up our trash. Think about the court costs, think about the police, think about code enforcement. I have estimated, this is Patrick Davenport estimate. This is Patrick Davenport, so I just want to make sure the paper and all y'all understand. If you look at KACCB's estimate, solid waste estimate, we are spending $1.6 million annually just on illegal dumping and service theft. We hear complaints from constituents that say, hey, I need my street paved, I need speed bumps, I need this done. We as a community are wasting, throwing away, literally in the trash, $1.6 million just to deal with illegal dumping. So it's not just, I get your personal choice, because we as residents, taxpayers, are already paying for it now. All I'm trying to say is, let's save some money for the taxpayers. Let's look at the low-hanging fruit and where we can save money, and this is one of those ways. Franchising may not be the right way. Let's do it. Let's take that off the table. But it's ridiculous when we have so many needs in this community that we waste money on trash pickup, waste money on illegal dumping and service theft, that we as taxpayers think it's okay to keep the status quo, keep things as it is, while $1.6 million of our budget goes out the door. So that's all I'm asking. Like, it may not be franchising. Maybe we need to do a CDO, maybe we need to send it back to LRC, put more teeth in it. But folks, I'm tired of going to next door, and I love my constituents complaining about trash on our streets, when one of the clear indications when you look at other communities that seem to work is franchising. Franchising may not be it, I get it, personal choice. But let's have that discussion as a community. When you go home to your husband, wives, or your family, say, you know what? My county is throwing away $1.6 million every year. I can get speed bumps. But we want to fight about franchising, but not have that further discussion. How can we save that money? That's all I'm asking. Thank y'all.
Commissioner Thornton and then Myers.
Two things, and I think that Commissioner Davenport made a very objective point. Objective, I think. A lot of us are speaking from subjectively. But it also goes to the fact of what I said about you're on solid waste, we're on LRC, and we're all talking about the same thing, but we're not talking together. I think if that conversation, if that process was in place, that we would be in a more objective position than we are now. It may not be franchising. And I do want to allude to Commissioner Houle about unification and what people were promised. They were not promised that they had to pay for their trash. They were promised that the government was going to pick up their trash. So those are two different analogies. So I don't want us to walk away and say, well, this is what people asked for. No, they asked for the same things that you get in inner city, and that's what's not happening. I really think, again, I think it was Commissioner Link and Commissioner Culpepper talked about putting teeth in what we already have. Because at the end of the day, we don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. What do we already have? Let's fix it. And the biggest picture, and that's again, I wish Allison, Commissioner Wright was here. The problems of the dumping and trash and everything did not change with the franchising in some of those other communities. So what will work? So I think that this is a good conversation. I don't agree with doing it the same old way, the same old thing, and getting something different. That's what we call crazy. But I do think we need to revisit how we are treating our community equitably, not spending all that money that Commissioner Davenport just said, and what the bigger plan is. And the other thing I want to mention is that going to this franchising concept, I hate to say it, but we are going to put a stop block for some of the minorities. Some of the minority contract haulers can't compete with the big haulers. So we'll be shutting the door on a lot of people that have been doing this work for years and do a good job, because I'm very happy with my little hauler. We may be putting them out of business. I didn't even know when we talked until the work session that I really thought it was the 5 groups. I didn't know it could open up. I didn't know that my little hauler could be work as a subcontractor. That ain't right, and it isn't fair. So there is some diversity issues here. Maybe again, instead of having 2 different conversations about the same thing, maybe we can all come together and then even have some more community input. I do think, Commissioner Davenport, when you put it down to the dollar amount, it makes sense. But there may be other ways to get to that dollar amount saving that does not take away people's freedom, and it does not. Oh, and also the flock cameras. I think during that meeting, they said that they had issued 250 citations. Maybe we need to invest more in the flock cameras. So there's other ways. There may be other ways, but I don't think I'm ready to support this the way it's. And I'm definitely agreeing with Commissioner Fisher. I ain't about to want to pay nobody no more money to tell us what we should already know what to do.
Commissioner Myers.
Yeah, I'm following up on what Commissioner Davenport shared and building on what my colleague Commissioner Thornton said, because that's exactly what I was thinking about the question of litter and trash and illegal dumping in these comparable cities. Is there a distinct difference? And one way, actually, if you were looking at dollars, you could be looking at all those comparable cities and towns and finding how much money they're spending on litter, illegal dumping, and so forth. Has this solved the issue there? And maybe when it comes down to that, I know something that's come up again and again, is code enforcement, and code enforcement not only in single-family neighborhoods, but among apartment complexes and commercial entities. Maybe we need to be making sure that we put more staff into code enforcement. I was reading through the ordinance on trash and looking at the ordinance around dumpsters and cleanliness and so forth on those things. And Do we have anyone going out and working on that? And maybe if that's something that would help, along with the flock cameras, those are things that we need to be putting money in our budget to next year. Just some thoughts on that.
So that's the issue. So if we send it back to, I suggest send it to LRC or to kill it altogether. So the elimination of haulers is not true. It was suggested, it was assumed that possibly. But if you look at the other discussion of the other communities, if you read the report from LRC looking at other communities, it improved, all the cities improved the cleanliness, improved trash dumping in their community. No community is going to be 100% getting rid of illegal dumping. But even some of the haulers, local haulers, they're not going to come out here and say it because they're going to respect their constituents, where their residents, and the price, the people who pay for the service. There are haulers who literally go into 300 home neighborhood, 200 home neighborhoods to pick up 2 customers. They're like, we're zigzagging across town. It's not efficient. It's not good. I'm not putting words in their mouth, but either way, whatever we decide to do, I support. But at the end of the day, all I'm trying to do is save taxpayers some money. This is low-hanging fruit, literally low-hanging fruit. Franchising may not be the solution, but I would love to see, drive down Cedar Shoals Drive on any given day. I don't know why people think that's the landfill, but it's tiresome. Transit, they're in charge of the transit stop. Leisure services, they're getting tired of, we got, some people, but just let's figure out a solution that saves the taxpayer money from this illegal dumping. Even if it's 20, 30%, it's a dent in a bigger problem. And our community is growing. So my estimate of 1.6 million when it comes to court costs, code enforcement, all those different departments, trash pickup, even bulky waste. We added $400,000 to our budget this year, just for bulky waste. We don't need flock cameras. We don't need these extra cameras. If people would just do the right thing, but that's just me. I'm passionate about trash.
Commissioner Link.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if the problem is exacerbated in our community because we are very much a transient and, kind of resort vacation-oriented community due to the university and the football culture. I've stayed in Airbnbs where, they require you to haul out your trash. I wonder how many of those folks staying at those Airbnbs are hauling their trash out and dumping it on the side of the road somewhere in Athens-Clarke County. Maybe we could start looking at individual ordinances and requiring, if you have an Airbnb license, you require your guests to keep the trash at the Airbnb, and you are responsible for hauling it out, the owner, the Airbnb operator. I see what happens after a big football game. I see the filth that's left behind. When people aren't in their own community and they're out having fun, they're very careless. And I just wonder if we can just be more aggressive in enforcing litter laws on the ground, as they happen, and, at individual, rental communities, like the hauler that I rode with, pointed out the areas where he has the most problems tend to be very student-oriented communities. They don't know the rules. They don't necessarily care about the rules. Maybe we need to be aggressive in making sure they know the rules.
Commissioner Hool.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Attorney Drake. I'm hearing a lot of colleagues here interested in this idea of putting more teeth behind what we've already got. And Attorney Hines spoke to this quite a bit in our committee meeting. So I wonder if maybe your office could circulate some kind of memo that just kind of clarifies what the barriers are to us actually providing more quote-unquote teeth to the process that we've currently got, and why the proposal for franchising is different and would give us the opportunity to do that. Is that something that y'all could do for us?
think you're talking about in regards to, so the director of solid waste has said she'll get complaints from people who hauler doesn't pick their waste up
Yeah, I mean,
timely.
a few of the issues that we're hearing people raise up around basically like issues folks might have with a private hauler. And why can't we, as the county, do a better job of stepping in and enforcing better behavior or getting better outcomes for those customers? I mean, part of it is that they're not our county staff's customers, but I think there's also some legal issues with this structure the structure we've currently got versus the one that's being proposed in terms of what it would give us from a legal standpoint. That's what I've been hearing.
Yeah, I'll ask Sherry to share what she said with the entire commission.
That's right. So in the LRC, I do recall Attorney Hines noting that adding more teeth would not be permissible due to the nature of the way we have our permitting framework.
And I guess maybe to put a finer point on, because I think that's probably largely understood here, but why would changing the approach to our current permitting framework still not achieve that? That ultimately it has to be something that's not permitting, but instead franchising to achieve it. I think she kind of got into that in the meeting, but we haven't really gotten that concisely in writing. Thanks.
All right, would folks like to forge ahead or take a short break?
Break, please.
Because I drank 6 Cokes just to stay away.
Yeah, can we get the, well, it's okay.
Yeah, we can do one more, then take a quick break. I don't think this will take very long. All right, so item 12 is is designed for the specific upgrade to relieve pressure on the North Oconee River Sewer Interceptor.
I've got just some, thank you.
Commissioner Hamby?
Thank you for helping address this one. Just some questions for Manager Jones. So is the 300-some thousand also coming from public utilities to address this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I had asked at the work session they said there were 18% countywide that were denied, and perhaps they're working on the answer for me, but I was wanting to know what that number represents, and if they could break it down even further to which ones were denied and how many bedrooms were associated with each ones that were denied. And I say all this to say I think you and others around behind this rail certainly recognize the importance of sewer in our community, and especially important for the areas like downtown where you want, where there isn't really question about density, and where you want density that helps our neighborhoods not have to have the pressure on them as well. So when we get to a situation where we're not able to provide the capacity to allow that density, that certainly I know you would agree is problematic for us. So what I'm hoping will happen is that we'll get this ball rolling, but we can't wait 10 years, y'all. We can't wait, I know we talked at the work session 2 to 3 years to get something fixed. I mean, this rises to a level of importance that we need to be, all hands on deck with getting this situation fixed, because it impacts whatever zoning issues we decide on in the future. It certainly, in my mind, others may disagree, it impacts the discussion that's happening with our land use development plans. I mean, if we're, if some on that group are calling for more dense in certain areas, then that's something we need to look at and maybe even put on hold until we get this study resolved and questions answered. Thank you.
Any further input?
So is that consent?
I don't think I want it on consent. No.
All right, it is 8:15. Let's be back in our seats and ready to roll at 8:25. Hey, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. We are picking up with item 13, and that's the intergovernmental agreement between the Athens-Clarke County Unified Government and the Classic Center Authority for funding to develop the Center for Racial Justice and Black Futures. Y'all remember that we've allocated both some American Rescue Plan Act funds as well as some general funds for build out of this facility that was part of the work that rose out of the Memory and Justice team. And so this is just the intergovernmental agreement. And this, just if you're kind of curious to know which space at the Classic Center we'd be talking about, is the space of the expanded Grand Hall that's right across from the Foundry Street buildings on Foundry Street. So, Commissioner Fisher.
Yes, two questions. Have the money been expended to the Classic Center yet? Do we know?
That's what the IGA is going to do, sir.
Oh, okay, so we got to do the IGA. So we don't know whether or not they've done any type of design, anything for that space yet.
I think that would follow this.
I think so as well. I'm not sure if the designs are fully baked yet. I know there's been conversations. I had a conversation with Ms. Hattie, and she's talking with Paul all the
Okay.
time, but I don't think it's fully baked.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Myers?
Yeah, I read through that there, and I can ask Ms. Hattie myself on that one too, but because it talked about there being like in that intergovernmental agreement, a professional, a design professional and a contractor, and then they started talking about the background research and the story, and I thought there was going to be some someone who had a specialty in that area that's hired, but I can follow up and ask her about that.
All right, well, consent?
Yes, yeah,
Everybody
definitely.
okay?
Yeah.
All right. All right. Moving 13 to consent.
Yeah, I know it's late in the game to mention this, but I'm just hearing from constituents that, and can we leave this off consent? I need to talk to Hattie just to address the floor, just to make sure that, and if I'm reading okay, how do I say this? I'm gonna say it.
And if you'd like to email some questions subsequent to this so you get some details, that's certainly an option.
That I've shared with staff, that I prepared that staff is shared with the Classic Center Authority. We're waiting on their comments back, so I hope that we should be able to get that out to the mayor and commission and the public by the end of the week. I know Ms. Hattie sent an email asking for a copy of it. It just hadn't been finalized.
So my concern is just, I get the ACC Center for Racial Justice and Black Futures. I just don't want it to be, so curator, when it comes to curating this museum, that's later or this included?
Really the functional work of curating is later. I mean, those practical questions about programming, displays, all of those kind of things would be later steps.
Okay.
Well, even,
Commissioner Thornton?
I'm sorry. Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Davenport, if we don't put, if you didn't want to recommend that you just want to not have it on consent, because you have some questions, you don't have to, do we have to elaborate on that? If he has questions, does he have to say what the questions are?
We can have questions and put it on consent. We could have questions and leave it off consent. Both those are options.
We don't have the IG, we don't have the agreement yet, so I don't think we should put it on. Because I forgot, we have the
can-
thing that says what should be in the agreement.
Yeah,
but
we can
don't
leave it
have
off
the
consent.
agreement.
Yeah, so that would make
Till
sense
you're
to
waiting on
me.
some language.
Yeah, that would make sense to me. Is that okay with you?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, next item 14 is another intergovernmental agreement, this one with the Athens Downtown Development Authority. You'll see in just the sort of high-level executive narrative, there's mention of a proposed financing structure. And just what I would want to make clear is that in sort of ultimate approved language, I would want to make sure there was some funding flexibility among the various ways that we could get to project delivery is through either bond financing or just traditional bank loan financing. That was one of the prospects that was raised in the Downtown Development Authority meeting. So anyhow, I would want to leave this off consent just to make sure that we have a sort of broad swath of potential financing options. Commissioner Davenport?
I emailed David later, and hopefully he's listening. When are we getting the location and time for the public input? And has the clerk of commission got it to put it on the ACCGov? And if it's not there, then when can we get that? 'Cause I think it's coming up.
Madam Clerk, have you seen that come through?
No, I don't recall. I heard from David Lynn today, there is a preliminary meeting with like downtown businesses, I think
That's what I saw.
Thursday morning, but I replied to him and asked him about the broader public input meeting, and he said they're working on that, and we should be
Okay.
hearing any day now about
I knew I
that.
saw something from him.
Yeah. So, yeah, and it should be after business hours, so we can get the broader public to attend.
Thank you.
More is on its way. Commissioner Culpepper?
Just a question, so when this is completed, is this going to be considered public property?
Yes.
So we've already got a homeless problem downtown, and if the Downtown Development Authority is making this investment, I feel like we need to be, who's going to be responsible for keeping this area clean? Us?
Could be some combination of Downtown Development Authority financing and kind of general maintenance from the unified government.
I feel like we need to support them and support the downtown businesses in helping keep that area clean and, you know, free of being heckled by people when you're trying to eat down there. We've had a lot of complaints from downtown businesses about the homeless, the increase of homelessness down there, and them congregating in that area. And if we're going to create another area that's going to be more inviting, we need to make sure that we're keeping that area clean for everyone, so they will be able to enjoy the area.
Commissioner Thornton?
And I guess, I think if you say it a couple of times, people will hear you. To Commissioner Culpepper's comment about the homeless, again, I just want to reiterate that the direction of the Homeless Coalition needs to take in consideration as they develop their programs and planning around homelessness, because it's all connected. You just can't separate it. So I think when they hear you talk about downtown and we're talking about North Avenue, those should resonate with them in their plannings and their programs.
All right, next item, number 15 is the potential pre-designated programs for the next TSPLOST referendum. And as you see in your agenda packet, staff has sort of like 3 stops along the way. Obviously, there could be a commission-defined option that includes some combination of those elements, but those are sort of 3 presets that you could draw from. Commissioner Myers?
Yeah, I am interested in having a significant preset for the TSPLOST program. I think it's a responsibility to take care of our house and not keep putting it off into future commissions and future, future taxpayers and such. The TSPLOST program is pretty short. I'm hoping we could make a real, significant dent into our upkeep as we move forward. And I'd be very interested in working with other commissioners on putting together a CDO along those lines. So I'm interested tonight in hearing what people's feelings are about how much. I do have one question for the manager's office, and whether or not you have this tonight or another time. It was considering the pavement. And, well, first of all, this assumes a 5-year program?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so how much have we spent on the paving? How much have we spent over the last 5 years? And, what would that average out to? So if we can have that number. And also, there's always been this theme, this narrative that's come up, or, we can't even actually get it all done. Can we find the people to do the paving? Well, if we put this large amount, because there's a very big number for the paving in particular. And so I don't want to, if we make a significant dent or put a significant amount into the paving, I want to make sure we can actually use it. So any thoughts on that?
Yes, ma'am. So over the past 5 years, the funding for paving has incrementally increased from $7.5 million in CY '20 to $8.9 million in CY '24. And the answer is related to whether or not paving companies are going to be interested here. I think so. I think, as long as we continue to have money for paving, I think we become more competitive in the market for paving companies.
So that means we've spent, that you're saying about 8 million, I'm just averaging it out. That would be about 40 million that we've spent in 5 years.
Plus or minus, probably
Plus or minus,
It's definitely
right.
minus, but
Okay.
38, something like that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Davenport?
Yeah, I would like to work with Commissioner Myers on option 1, the CDO. That's it.
I'll work with you. I would like to work with her.
Commissioner Link?
I'm kind of interested in option 2. Just because we put out the call to our citizens thing, and it's been a tradition now that, we do have this process by which citizens can propose projects and other entities, the Downtown Development Authority, Greenway Commission, whatever. There are other entities out there that can propose projects. And so I'm thinking, having, roughly less than half available for that.
Commissioner Hool?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to let other colleagues hash out a CDO, but I'll, work with you on it if you want to. I'm really grateful for you being willing to take the lead on it. Don't want too many cooks, but I will share my thoughts. I too favor option 1 funding. I do want to point out that right now the agenda as presented is suggesting option 2. I'm guessing that's staff just trying to not stake a claim and pick the middle, but I really like option 1, but maybe modified to reduce the pavement funding to an option 2 or option 3 level. I see that as the least critical of these things, and also in thinking through how general fund dollars should be used for a lot of what's on this list. But we're just so far behind that we might need this to catch up. Pavement maintenance seems like a good place to kind of keep some of that general fund money still being the main thing. But also, if roads get cracked or whatever, they're not great to look at, they're not great to ride on, but they're not a safety issue, and they're not going to fundamentally stop traffic. If our stormwater infrastructure that's failing keeps leading to collapsed roads, it will. If our bridges fail, it will. It's dangerous, it's highly disruptive, it's even more expensive to repair something broken than to repair something that's breaking. So I really hope we keep those. The residential traffic management program, we finally got that program set up, and the list is extremely long of projects that I think we all have plenty of examples of in our own districts, and we have residents who benefit from that, and the price tag on that's pretty small. Transit's just struggled to be funded enough by this government right along, and we're talking about really building a much better transit system with more frequent service and everything. So even if how we design it and what other funding we build in evolves, to really have a transit system that's going to have more frequency and go to more places and have these transfer facilities is going to require a hugely stepped up investment. And so this is, I think, a chance for us to level up. And then I just ask that we really keep the mall transfer station. So even when we talk about special projects, that is more special. And I ask this not just because it's a game changer for the people of West Athens and critical to the expansion of our transit system that we've been talking about, and it is those things. But also because we as a government, through our agreement with the developers of the mall property, have obligated ourselves to a 5-year timeline. And I'm not sure we're going to have any easier way to fund the $7 million price tag of that than the TSPLOST referendum. But I also think, candidly, that is a great way to get folks on the west side excited about the TSPLOST. Even if there aren't as many special projects, that one is such a game changer, I think it will. So those are my thoughts. In summary, let's go with option 1 level funding, but reduce pavement maintenance to the option 2 or option 3 level.
Commissioner Thornton?
I just was wondering, and I am interested in option 1 also, but this question is a little bit off the actual. I know Manager Jones sent us pretty much a schedule of how things are going to roll out. Do we have all of the Are all the districts represented on TSPLOST? There are two people?
Thank you so much for bringing that up, Commissioner Thornton. No, that's, we still need some appointees.
We will, we'll
from
do some private
commissioners.
nudges early in the AM.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's going to be important as we're discussing this and the CDOs.
Commissioner Culpepper.
Is sewer expansion or increasing sewer capacity, is that an option for TSPLOST?
No, sir.
Okay.
But
Stormwater,
Stormwater, yeah.
that's right.
yeah, stormwater is.
Appreciate everybody's input. I'm very agreeable to something close to option one. Would absolutely not want to see any reduction from that dollar amount for either storm live stream replacements or for transit. So just want to make that clear, and that goes for the mall transit station as well as the capital stock for the fleet too. So thanks, everybody. Looking forward to seeing the version of this that comes across our desk in a couple of weeks. Item 16, we don't have language on yet, but I'm working with the attorney's office. As you're aware, and this has been a request of Commissioner Houle, the state has sort of reduced the onerous nature of what had one time been an extended approval process for halfway houses. And so I'm just asking that we pass a resolution to true up our local code with the current state code. So you'll see specific language that will do essentially that. Items 17 and 18 I'll mention just as a cluster, and certainly glad to respond and have staff respond to any questions about those. We had through fiscal year '24 been working on a very extended process of trying to get essentially trued up with the way that our either co-funded or state designated positions work vis-a-vis our salary schedule. The anticipation had been that this would probably get trued up by the springtime. That did not happen due to the dramatic complexity of this. What I've emphasized to the court is that for future budget years, this needs to be on a cyclical basis. This doesn't need to be an ad hoc thing. And so this would be the truing up with the expectation explicit. I think this is in Facts and Issues 7, in at least the first one, that we then move into a regular calendar year cycle. And the nature of these state designated positions is that the state does lag us a little bit. So we would always be anticipating we would be adding the local supplement in the autumn. So that's kind of how that would work. So I've got Commissioners Davenport and Fisher.
You kind of skimmed over 16, title only, and I get it, the fact that it's title only, but the state does give local municipalities to either essentially opt in to that agreement, and I'm voting no for that. Okay. I'm not agreeing to that.
Commissioner Fisher.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. 17 and 18, I did call the manager's office, and thank you for clarifying some of that. I do struggle with us doing mid-year pay raises, and I'm not sure, you explained a little bit, I'm not sure why it didn't come through the budget process. Now, my question is, are we required to do a mid-year pay adjustment? My second question was, again, why was not included in the budget, and what percentage does the state provide funds to make this sort of equity among attorneys? And I just think that, and I guess my fourth question is whether or not, and I think Manager Jones answered for me, is the probate and the magistrate, are they ACCGov employees or are they state employees?
So I'll begin, and then we're going to go ahead and follow up. So, no, we are not required to do it, but it's historically kind of across jurisdictions, across the 159 counties in the state, the norm. This was not done during our FY25 budget preparation because the expectation was we were going to get this comprehensive system. The comprehensive system ultimately proved too unwieldy to do sort of in one fell swoop. And so these are, I would describe as lagging. These requests really had kind of been in the pipeline as long ago as last autumn. And then you've got in the courthouse a variety of positions. You have some that are truly co-funded, and I would note the Superior Court judges as examples of those, where the state does provide some funding and the locality provides some funding on top of that, kind of not unlike, say, the way that public educators work. Then you have some other positions where the state sets a minimum salary and the locality is just expected to pursue that minimum salary. And then you have some other positions that really aren't on a state standard at all. So some of the assistant attorney positions would be examples of those. So I will note, kind of having been in public ed for a very long time and having just used that example, the state does not do us any favors in really kind of creating a unified system. What we have attempted to do is create the closest thing to a unified system, knowing that we have locally paid attorneys who have a set of experiences and skills that are demarcated in our own internal funding plan. So, for example, for the attorneys who work for Attorney Drake.
Okay. And I understand where you're coming from, Mayor, but I do, especially if we got people that's on the state system. I struggle a little bit with this if they're getting a pay raise from the state, and then we're getting a supplement from us. And that causes inequity too. So I think we need to take a look at that. And again, I'm not against what they do in the courthouse, Magistrate, Superior Court, probate. They do great work. My thing is that I just want to be consistent. I know you mentioned this sort of way we have done it, but I think we need to take a look at that moving forward and just be consistent because it throws things out of whack when you got the state giving attorneys money, then they come to asking us for a supplement. So I think we just need to look at that as a commission and as we go in the budget, when those things come down the pike. Well, I like to know just from, so I can put this out on the public record, I like to know.
This is a really complex issue. This is a really complex issue. Yeah, and, you know, prior to me digging in, there was this push to try to create this one formula to rule them all, to make sure everybody was going to be on the same page and on the same cadence. And that's proven to be pretty tough. And I would say that Judge Macon, Chief Magistrate, Judge Schaefer, probate court judge, they've been patient with us. We talked about this, and we asked them to hang tight while we crafted this formula, and they have. So I just want to say that. And those two are our employees.
Okay, thank you.
And during budget season, I do remember Judge Macon coming before us, but he did not ask for an increase, did he?
No, he anticipated that his long-standing request for us to observe this sort of truing up was going to happen.
Oh, okay, so that's where some of this,
And we asked Judge Macon, Judge Schaefer to hang tight while we were trying to create this formula.
but during budget season, there was not a dollar request from Judge Macon. And I know, that,
No.
but there was one from,
Associate Magistrate.
yes, but there wasn't one from Judge Macon. So that's where I'm trying to understand what happened.
We asked him not to.
Okay.
Commissioner Houle.
Yeah, I guess I just want to, I hope that we'll support this, both because of the information we're getting about how we kind of got here, and then also noting, you know, what we've done for when we think about equality across the system, you know, other courts and the supplements we've given, and as we've worked towards this new way of doing things that I think is going to be better, wiser, stronger, more amazing, that Mayor Gertz is describing. You know, this is maybe the last of the shoring up, relatively small amount, but I think if we have an understanding that it's going to be different moving forward, to not do this would be, in my view, to not do for these positions what we have actually already done with recent votes by this body for other positions in the courts.
Commissioner Thornton.
And I totally agree with Commissioner Houle. But I do hear what Commissioner Fisher is saying. We're doing this because one reason I would support it. I like Judge Macon. I like the probate folk. Got to go before him sometime. You never know. But anyway, but that's what I think is the problem. We do stuff for one group, and then another group comes up later. I mean, we need to make a systematic type adjustment to fill in those gaps. So it doesn't mean that, you don't want to say, we're just doing this because we did it for somebody else. We should have a system in place, not giving you any more extra work, Manager Jones, but we need systems that would apply to everybody across the board. That won't happen on this issue this time, but it's surely something we should be planning for the upcoming budget season.
We are. Good point. And to Commissioner's thought point, yeah, I'm not against, what we're doing, but I just think to be consistent, especially, that's why I think we need to distinguish out between who's our employees and who works for the state. And that's one thing I want to look at. And then, and if we're doing a pay raise across the board with all our employees, then like Commissioner Thornton, that should be part of that budget process. When we say, okay, they requested, if it's 3%, then we request 3% for the probate and for the magistrate. And then that way we're not coming back doing a mid-year adjustment, so.
Yeah, and one of the things that I anticipate we'll see in future budget years is we put together an appropriate placeholder amount, but knowing that the state doesn't get us information until late, that placeholder amount that we set in the fiscal year budget becomes a real amount that we then affirm in the autumn, because some of these folks are calendar year, not fiscal year employees, which is
Yeah.
another quirk.
Yeah.
Yet another quirk that we haven't mentioned is that sometimes you have somebody who leaves office early, and so the state has this unusual piece of state compensation code that if somebody leaves office early, their successor, who might be a much younger person with much less experience, continues the salary of that person. So as I mentioned earlier, the state does not create a favorable framework for us, and so we are attempting to make some sanity out of something that's a little bit nutty. Commissioner Houle.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the patience that some of these folks have illustrated that Manager Jones noted. I'm thinking about how many times we've had judges come sit through our budgets and our meetings, thinking they might need to be there to answer questions or something. So it sounds like there's an understanding of a better way to move forward, but maybe to not leave them inclined to come sit through more of our meetings unnecessarily. I'd ask that we put these on consent if colleagues are amenable.
Yeah, I'm okay with leaving them to I just want to have those questions answered.
So we're definitely going to get some good information, and we've got a spreadsheet that I think is almost exactly what you're looking for. Everybody okay with consent for 16 and 17,
That's
or
fine
17 and
with me.
18?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mayor,
Oh,
we
go ahead,
did,
Commissioner
we
Thornton.
did put number 8 not on consent, right?
I would like to leave 16 off of consent.
Yeah, 16 is, 16 we don't have language for, so it's got to stay off consent. And 8 is off consent.
Thank you.
I think we only put those last two on consent.
I
I think
believe you,
everything
child.
else stayed
I
on.
believe you, child.
All in favor of adjourning, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, thanks, everyone.